Do you know that there was a moment in history when Russia felt as if the sky itself had turned against it? A moment when millions of people walked into a winter they would never return from? This is the forgotten tragedy of 1601 and 1602, a famine so devastating, so merciless, and so deeply tragic that it shaped the soul of a nation for generations.
Our story does not begin in Russia. It begins thousands of miles away in the rugged mountains of Peru. In February of the year 1600, the volcano Huayna Putina erupted with unimaginable force. It was so violent that witnesses described the sky tearing open. Ash burst into the atmosphere, climbed into the stratosphere, and began drifting around the globe. For months, the world dimmed. And when the ash clouds finally reached Russia, they brought with them the coldest summers Europe had seen in centuries.
Spring never came. The rivers remained frozen. Birds did not return. Trees refused to bud. Farmers walked out to their fields and felt something they had never felt before, a soil that no longer responded to life. In the summer of 1601, temperatures dropped so low that snow fell in July. Crops that had barely sprouted froze overnight. What did grow was drowned by constant, relentless rainfall. It was as if nature itself whispered, "Nothing will survive."
At first, people hoped it would pass. They rationed their grain. They stretched what little they had. They prayed. But by autumn, it was clear there would be no harvest. Food prices exploded. A sack of rye that once cost a few kopecks now cost a fortune. Families sold everything they owned, clothes, tools, land, all for a handful of grain that wouldn't last a week. Those who had nothing left simply starved. And this was only the beginning.
By 1602, Russia had become a living nightmare. Travelers spoke of roads lined with bodies, men, women, children, lifeless, thin as shadows, frozen where they fell. In the cities, entire neighborhoods disappeared. Mothers carried their children to the markets, begging for food that no one had. Fathers dug through frozen earth, searching for roots, anything to keep their families alive. One eyewitness wrote, "Death walked openly in the streets. The living no longer cried. They were too weak for tears."
Tsar Boris Godunov tried to save his people. He opened the royal granaries. He ordered grain to be imported from abroad. He gave money to the poor. But nothing could match the scale of the disaster. Nothing could feed an entire nation whose earth had stopped producing life. His efforts were noble, but they were drowned by the sheer weight of millions starving. People began to whisper that God had abandoned them, that the Tsar had lost his favor, that a new ruler must rise. Hunger was turning into rebellion.
As famine deepened, Russia began to crack. Villages emptied. Some people fled into forests, never to be seen again. Others joined bandits, believing it was better to die fighting than to die starving. Law and order collapsed. And in this chaos, a new threat emerged. Men began claiming they were the rightful heir to the throne, the mysterious false Dmitris, and thousands followed them. The famine had not ended, but the civil war had begun.
By the time food slowly returned in 1603, it was too late for millions. Historians estimate that 1/3 of Russia's population, between 1 and 2 million people, vanished in those 2 terrible years. But the famine did more than kill. It ignited the time of troubles, a decade of rebellion, invasion, and suffering that nearly erased the Russian state. And all because the world went cold. Because a volcano on the other side of the planet darkened the sky. Because Russia faced a winter without end.